And welcome into Poke the Bear, episode 113. 113, that is Conor Ryan. I'm Evan Marinofsky. Conor, how you doing?
Evan, I'm doing well. How you doing?
Doing great. Doing great. You are in the full swing of first week of Bruins stuff. You had rookie camp, you have captain's practice, and today, Thursday, the day we're recording, the golf tournament, the annual fun golf tournament. Did they let you swing the driver at all? Did they let you, hop on for a hole or no?
No, thank Christ.
Ridiculous.
Thank Christ that did not happen. Yes, I enjoy a good round or two with my friends, but if I had to do it in a setting in which the Bruins would look at me as I immediately, knock one 20 yards down into the dirt, would not be great. It's a bad way to start the season.
Charlie Coyle's like, suddenly I don't go to BU anymore. I never went to BU.
Yeah, exactly. People talking about the golf tournament as the official start of the year. You don't want to get off on a bad foot. Like, if I fire a ball 20 yards down the line, like, it's all people are going to think of for the whole rest of the year. If I walk up to them, like, oh, it's the guy who made an ass of himself on the first hole. So thankfully, no, I stuck to the sidelines, didn't get involved in anything like that. I let the players take care of that for their golf tournament. So
this guy couldn't get out of the sand. It was something to watch.
Yeah.
The best golf tournament moment ever, at least from my memory, was John Moore going around with his air horn, and or it might have been Kevin Miller. It was one of the two. That was always just such a memorable moment that I'll tell my grandchildren about.
I remember, and I think it was 2019 when they had the golf tournament out in Bolton, I think in the middle of middle of nowhere, honestly, the International. I think Marchand showed up without golf shoes. I think he showed up in flip-flops. And they're like, you can't participate in a round of golf like that. So I think they had to go find him shoes. So that was my main takeaway from that golf tournament. So
what a time! You should get a picture of it. Anyways, speaking of Marchand, talked a lot on Thursday about his return, his rehab. So he has said that he had quite the extensive rehab over the summer on crutches for 2.5 weeks. Has yet to skate. He starts skating tomorrow, actually today, Friday, and he wants to play by Thanksgiving. Now, this is kind of in line with the timeline that was given initially, right? This is nothing crazily different. It's just stunning to hear that he hadn't skated all summer, because you would expect, a player would skate during the summer. Obviously, his situation's a bit different, but to hear he's starting skating tomorrow, it's like, oh yeah, that's right. Marchand's going to be out quite a while.
Yeah, I think it's something where it just kind of hits home the fact of kind of the uphill climb that a guy like him, like Marchand, has to face. And I think when you look at things early on in the offseason where they announce surgeries and they go through the recovery timeline, a guy like Marchand seems like the perfect candidate for a guy who is, all right, I'm 6 months away, it's going to be 5. It's a guy that always tends to push the envelope and wants to get back there as soon as possible. But, talking to him today, he was very candid. It wasn't like a sobering, talk or anything like that, but just in terms of him going through the fact that, it's quite the recovery in terms of, two surgeries on both hips. He mentioned that he was on crutches for 2.5 weeks. As you said, Friday will be his first time on the ice, really the entire summer, the entire fall, I guess, in terms of going into this training camp. So he was pretty much, setting up those parameters, or at least putting out those things that, he's expecting to be back. The timeline hasn't changed in terms of late November. He's expecting to be healthy by then, but it's not going to be a seamless process. It's not like, arthroscopic surgery or something where you clean something out and you're a little bit of rest, you get back up to speed. I mean, for him, he kind of even mentioned today that it feels like it's his first time skating again, in terms of you really have to shake that rust off, get that range of motion back, get all that rust off. So for him, yeah, it's something where, again, I don't know if that's something that should frighten Bruins fans. I don't think double hip surgery, listen, it's a big deal. It's not something you want to have happen to you, but it's not maybe a death knell like a Achilles tear in basketball, or like cartilage replacement surgery or something like that, where it's like
ACL.
Or even that, I feel like Achilles is like something where it's like, oh, here's the beginning of the end. That's something where even if maybe they come back for a year, you're on borrowed time at that point. Like, I don't think that's necessarily the case here, but for a guy who's, 34 years old coming off of a procedure like that, it's at least good that I think Marchand also agrees that it's going to be staying the course, building that strength back up. And hopefully by the time they get to November, he's full go and hopefully healthy and still playing at the same level that we've kind of expected from him in the last couple of years.
Yeah. And again, I mean, we expected it all along with with the recovery timeline, right? Like that's the other thing is we've talked all summer about this, Zacha filling in and we talked literally like on Monday about guys who were going to be, stepping into bigger shoes because Marchand's out. So yeah, I mean, again, unfortunate to not have him at the beginning of the year. I think the Bruins would rather have Brad Marchand out there. It's a little bit of too bit of a scorching hot take, but I'm willing to say it. But even then, I do look at that, and guys are going to get opportunities, and you're going to get to see, a good look at Pavel Zacha. And again, Marchand even said on Thursday that advice for Zacha: get open and you don't have to back check. So that's a pretty sweet deal. Just find open ice, and you don't even have to skate that hard back. I mean, that's the life right there.
Marchand's not back on the ice yet, but the zingers are still there. They're still coming with every media availability. So
yes,
some things don't change.
Some things don't change. He also had some things to say about David Pastrnak as well, correct?
Yeah, he was asked obviously about probably the most impactful storyline left for the Bruins at this point of the season, where you already know who's injured, who's coming back. You don't have any more lingering things with Bergeron and Krejci, but David Pastrnak, his contract situation not only impacts this year in terms of, I think, as we've already said, last thing we want to do is be talking in November about Pastrnak and that contract and whether or not they should trade him or what have you. It makes it easier for all parties for him to sign, hopefully at some point in this training camp. But Marchand was asked about, what he would say to Pastrnak in terms of being in his ear about a new deal. And obviously Marchand rather is under contract through 2025. So safe to assume he'd like to have Pastrnak with him throughout that time.
Crazy.
But Marchand pretty much said that, it's something that you don't want to be in a guy's ear in terms of something like that. And he's pretty much said, listen, if Pastrnak doesn't want to be here, obviously he does not want to talk about it with you over the course of an entire season. But also, even if he's wants to stay here, which seems to be the prevailing thought, for Marchand, it's like, all right, well, if he wants to be here, the team wants him to be here. They're going to sort things out. They'll agree on a number. They'll agree on a year. They'll agree on whatever makes them happy. So unless Pastrnak wants to go up to a guy like Marchand or Bergeron or any other veteran in the room and talk about how they're feeling with the contract situation, Marchand pretty much was like, leave him be. He'll sort those things out. That if he wants to be here, and that seems to be what both parties want, eventually down the road, it will sort itself out. It's not going to be a situation where he's vouching for a guy to come back, or it's like, Bergeron and Krejci in the offseason, where obviously I think Brad Marchand was very happy that they were going to be back. Would he love to have Pastrnak here long term? Of course, but I don't think he's going to be actively recruiting. He's not going to be at the negotiating table, or he's going to be in the window looking in as Pasternak's representative.
Sign the contract. I don't
think it's going to be anything like that. But it seems like for talking with Marchand and Taylor Hall today, it seems like it's something where they're going to kind of be on the outside looking in. But obviously, the prevailing thought is not much of a surprise. They want Pastrnak here. They want him long term.
Well, it's like like if put yourselves in their shoes, it would be incredibly annoying if you're going through this stressful process and you had teammates every day being like, "You better sign that deal. Better sign that deal." Like then it's like, well, I don't want to be here anymore. These guys are so annoying. So it is the right approach on their part. So Taylor Hall spoke as well on Thursday, and he mentioned how can't start slow, and they can't. Like this is not the year for Taylor Hall and David Krejci and David Pastrnak to have a gradual start to the year. Like I think I would not be surprised if the season starts and like if in the first 2 to 3 games they don't have like multiple points, people are going to just flip out. Like it is going to be like, DEFCON red on Twitter from fans, or DEFCON 4, whatever the proper terminology is.
I believe it's DEFCON 1. I think someone like replied to my comment 1 and they said that it's technically, 5 is like chill. 1 is like when shit's hitting the fan. So
I should know this. I just watched
you learn something new every day.
I'm a big West Wing fan. I should know this, but yes, it'll be DEFCON 1 on Twitter if those that the trio does not get multiple points. So again, he's correct. They're going to have to start really hot, and again, it might not just be the start. They might have to carry play for a few months. And that's not to say, by the way, that like the Bergeron line isn't going to contribute, because they are. But you are not. I mean, it is a fact. I don't think this is also not a hot take that you are not going to get the same production out of Pavel Zacha and Patrice Bergeron that you would out of Brad Marchand and Patrice Bergeron. So again, you're going to need that second line to step up big.
Yeah, as you said, Bergeron and Saka and DeBrusk, like that's a more than suitable top 6 line. I think for most teams, they'd love to have that be a line you can pencil in and day out, but still, it's not going to be the same level as what you've expected in years past when you've had a guy like Marchand next to Bergeron and the kind of the instant offense they can generate, the two-way play they can generate. So yes, as you said, even if that line is still productive, they're not going to be at the elite level they were in years past. So I think it's going to be a lot of Krejci and Hall and Pastrnak kind of shouldering a lot of that scoring burden early on. And I think when you listen to Taylor Hall talk on Thursday, he seems to be up for the challenge. He's excited about it. I mean, who wouldn't be when you look at just, how effective he was at the end of last year when he had a guy like Pastrnak who can finish plays on his right side. And then again, Hall talked about the fact that second line last year was pretty good when it was Eric Haula in there, but now you upgrade that with a guy like David Krejci, who him and Hall together in that short time they were on a line together in 2021. They were like a cheat code. I think what was it? They outscored teams. Was it 14-1?
It was either like 12-1 or 13-1 or 14. It was something
crazy like that. And again, that's not to say that's going to happen this year, but Hall pretty much said, like, quote here was, you put good hockey players together, especially those two guys, good things are going to happen. I think, like I said, if that's the line starting the year, the goals will come and the plays will happen. So he's a guy that I think is bought into the fact that if that trio is kept together, something has to go drastically wrong for there not to be chemistry. I mean, it's something that it's been proven in 2 years now in terms of who Hall has been with. And he's a guy that, even though he's talented, I think Hall's best when he's also complemented by other high-end players. You look at just the track record there, the production, the fact that I imagine Montgomery's probably going to give that line a lot of offensive zone stats to get them rolling, to be that kind of offensive spark plug in the top 6. I think if you're Hall, you have to be excited about just what this opportunity is, not just in terms of the reps and the higher role and the potential for more points, but just having a guy like Krejci back and how much that kind of lifts your spirits. And that's something that Montgomery talked about today in his discussions. And he's pretty much touched base with every player in terms of either it's an informal phone call or sit down to talk about systems, just kind of get the feel for how these guys are. And Montgomery said on Thursday that during his brief time talking to Hall, one of his questions was, and this is before Krejci signed, but one thing Hall asked was if Krejci was coming back. So fair to say, I think Taylor Hall was looking forward to having Krejci back. And I have to imagine that if they're together for a full 82-game season, they're going to pile on some points.
And add on David Pastrnak to that right side, by the way.
Pretty good
line. And we've said this all off season though. Like, that's a good line. That's a really good line. By the way, that's a first line on most teams. And that's basically your first line for the first 3 months. So again, like, you got something good there. And again, I also, even though people on Twitter might be going a little bonkers if they don't start out with, 7 points and 3, I'm going to say combined points here, but like, right. if they don't have like 5
goals per game,
27 goals per game, cut them, send them to Providence. But I do think that give it time. And I don't think they're going to need it. I think they will start out solid, but even if they don't, give it a little time. I think the past and all the players, they give signs that they're pretty good. That they're usually pretty good together.
Yeah.
Speaking of the top six, Jake DeBrusk back in the news with this stuff, talked about the coaching change on what was that? Was that Tuesday? He talked about that?
Yeah.
Talked about that on Tuesday. And lots of people on Twitter were coming at it from a lot of different angles, saying that, either he shouldn't have been asked about rescinding his trade request, if that had anything to do with the coaching change, and
the public trade request.
Yeah, the public trade request. Yes.
We shouldn't ask.
Went away. Yeah, we shouldn't. It's a bad idea. Yeah, Conor, don't do your job. Don't do your job. We shouldn't be doing our jobs. We should be, I don't know what we would do. We could ask about, like, what stick are you using this year, Jake?
It's funny. The only people I think that were mad in that entire interaction were people online, because I think the media was fine with what they answered, what they were expecting. And I think DeBrusk, the professional athlete who's dealt with the media in the past, knew that question was coming. All right. Like,
crazy.
It's funny how people mad with people on Twitter, but
people online got mad.
That's shocking, right? Holy
shit. Can you believe it? No way. And do these people do anything with the media or no? They're just online. No, they're pretty much just online, right? Yeah, just online. Well, what are you gonna do? Anyways, but he did talk about it. We don't like to rag on people on this podcast, so we're not gonna get into the mud. But DeBrusk mentioned that, he actually, I have the full answer right here because our good friend Ty Anderson transcribed it for Twitter. So it saved me some time. I appreciate that. He said, shout out Ty. I have it right here on my phone. I mean, hey, that's been speculated enough. I think this was in response to his trade request being rescinded because of Cassidy being fired. I think you guys know I see stuff, and obviously that's an easy answer, but it's one of those things that, we could talk about. I respect that you guys, obviously your jobs are to ask those types of questions. And obviously it's one of those things where, it's kind of interesting. You have lots of hot topics or different things about the situation, even why I asked for a trade, but I am just looking forward to this year. I think I said that near the end of the year. It was against Montreal that I was looking forward to not having to answer those questions anymore. It's one of those things that's in the past, and the whole summer's been focused on getting right and getting ready for the season. And that's kind of how I view that question. And guess what? He put it to bed because it's probably never going to be asked again, ever. Even when they play the Knights, maybe it might get brought up like, the prototypical, how's it feel to face against Bruce Cassidy? And he'll go, it's cool, whatever. But that's the end of it, right? Like he diffused it. You guys did your job. You asked the question and DeBrusk answered it. And that's the end of it. Now it's time to focus on the season. That's it.
And again, I don't think it was going to be a situation where DeBrusk was going to be all right. Like, I'm so happy. And you guys know the reason why. Like, he wasn't going to cut like a WWF
like he's Beavis. He's like, Bruce sucked.
Or no, yeah, it was going to be like Macho Man Randy Savage. Like, let me tell you something. Like, it wasn't going to be one of those. Like, this isn't a wrestling promo. Like, we knew full well like what was probably going to happen, which DeBrusk, the pro athlete, was going to pretty much give a non-answer. But it's one of those like you give it and you're like,
what do you think? I get it out of it's the easy answer. He takes a stick. He's like, this is what I thought about Bruce Cassidy.
Right.
Over his head.
Exactly. Like, again, it's you saw it coming. And as you said, it's you more or less put the man to bed. I don't think the coach or the player is going to, air that dirty laundry. Because again, I think when you look at in years past, nothing is gained, I think, other than a clicky headline from someone outwardly being like, yeah, I didn't really like him. I think after Chloe got fired, who was it? Was it Ryan Spooner? Who I think was like, yeah, I hated playing for him. I think it was something like that. And was the response like, well, there it is. Like, yeah, you know what? I'm on Ryan Spooner's side. What was like the main reaction? It's like, this guy is too worried about not pissing off the coach as opposed to playing hard. Like, nothing is gained from a pro athlete, I think, outwardly like ripping a former coach. No. Other than like maybe the satisfaction of like those people online, they'll be like, I fucking knew it. I knew it. I was like, I think we can draw some parallel. You don't have to be Sherlock Holmes or Lee and the new
Hardy Boys
detective to draw the correlation, I think, between how content DeBrusk is right now and the ousting of Bruce Cassidy. This is not a deep conspiracy here. Like, you can kind of
Charlie from It's Always Sunny doing the whiteboard thing.
Yes, like, this is not anything earth shattering here. But again, also that being said, these are pro athletes. These are guys who knew these questions are coming. They're not going to just outwardly, drop bombs on the former coach on the way out. Like, it's not how it's done. Not how business is done these days, Evan.
It's like if you have a former boss who you don't like. I mean, you might like, crap on them to your friends, but you're not gonna like, say it. You're not gonna like put it all over Twitter and Facebook or like go to the newspaper and say it unless it was something like horrible. But if it's just a bad boss or something. But again, I think it was that's how the media works. That's how professional athletes answer the question. It is it's harmonious, and I don't think it's anything to get mad at. I think it's a very normal situation.
Not getting mad at it.
Can you believe this? But you know what? It's a reminder that hockey's back. The discourse online is just back and forth, and you know what? It's a reminder that the hockey's right around the corner. So there's a silver lining to it all.
Yes. The madness is back, Evan.
The madness is back, and you know what? As much as we might rip on the madness, we love the madness at times. So we embrace it. We embrace it. It's not, it's part of the deal. But another thing that's part of the deal from training camp is Fabian Lysell looks pretty good, or not from training camp, but from rookie camp. You actually had a great video on Bruins Rinkside YouTube channel of the highlights spliced together of Fabian Lysell from day one of rookie camp. And I got to say, Connor, me and my hockey scout eyes must admit he looks pretty good.
Yeah, I think it's fair to assume wherever Lysell ends up this year, whether it's in the NHL, it still seems like a long shot, at least to start the year. Providence, most likely, or even if he goes back to Vancouver, which I don't think will be the case. Wherever he ends up, he's going to put together quite a highlight reel. And again, this could be a situation where...
Imagine if you did go back to Vancouver, like the points.
I mean, he would have
highlights.
Like 100. Yeah, it would be pretty remarkable. But, even Lysell was pretty transparent up front with it too, in terms of course, he's trying to make an NHL roster, but the fact that he needs to work on his overall game. He's relying on his strengths. He knows what his strengths are in terms of his puck handling, his speed, all that stuff. But he's well aware that you can't be like a guy that's just hanging around in the offensive zone trying to, get those scoring chances when you're also being a liability on the other end of the ice. Last thing you want to be is the new Georgi Markulov and just get roasted at every turn, the poor kid. Because I so desperately want to watch a game with Markulov now, just because whenever I think of him, I just hear all the coaches be like, "Oh, he's going to work on his defensive game." Like, what the?
In the defense,
what the hell is he doing?
In the defensive zone, he just pulls out his phone out of his pocket, out of his pants.
He's doing like pirouettes
on
out
Twitter.
There. Like, what is he doing? Like, I want to know what happened that made it such a very stock thing in terms of what he needs to work on. But no, I think Lysell, the strengths are there. You can see the high end skill. You can see why they're so high on him. Again, it's during rookie camp. It's not really, heavy battle drills or anything like that, or it's not preseason games or what have you. That's when the real test will be. If we talk about Lysell and he's all of a sudden got 5 points in 2 preseason games against NHL competition, then we can take that next step in terms of, all right, is he maybe accelerating his timeline? But just in terms of where he stands out right now, it's hard to miss him when he's out there on the ice. He may not be the biggest guy, but when he has the puck on his stick, the skill pops, which, considering the state of this Bruins prospect pipeline, it's good to see. It's good to see a guy like that who can kind of do a little bit of a dangle fest and have some highlight reel goals and when he's given time and space out there. So early returns look good, but again, let's see how he does at the Prospects Challenge in Buffalo and then going into hopefully some preseason reps with the actual big club.
Well, I am sure you will have lots of video and coverage of Fabian Lysell, along with all Bruins at training camp coming up. What can the people look forward to, though, from you, aside from that stuff over at BSJ?
Yeah, we'll be breaking down, obviously, the Prospect Challenge, go through some video of that, seeing how other guys like Markulov, especially defensively, Beecher and these players fare in that. Obviously captain's practice will be ramping up or will be ending, I guess, rather, on Monday. And then we go into the actual kind of meat and potatoes in terms of training camp, where you'll see how Montgomery kind of changes the systems, how the practices are different, the drills, all that stuff. We'll be breaking that down as well. So all that stuff will be covered. We'll be at Warrior from now until hopefully June, almost every single day covering stuff. So all that stuff will be over at bostonsportsjournal.com. So please subscribe over at BSJ. If you want to follow me on Twitter, you can at ConorRyan_93.
Go do all that. And Connor, I would like to make an editorial pitch, a video. Now that I'm an editor, I'm making a pitch.
Yes. Okay.
I just lost the ability to make this pitch, but
yes.
But a video of Georgi Markulov in the defensive zone. Just highlights of
proof.
Just video.
It'll be him doing like a back check, like he'll break up a pass, and I'll be like, "I knew it! You guys were lying." So you hear me yelling over everyone in the caverns of Warrior. So we'll see. We'll get some video evidence, Evan.
Frauds. See, look at that play you just made. But anyways, Connor, always a pleasure. That is Conor Ryan, Evan Marinofsky, Poke the Bear listeners. Have a great rest of your week.